This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Mac and Jack Saturday Debate Show. I'm Jamie Pags, and I am here with Mac on the far left, and in the middle of us, Hall of Fame boxing writer Jack Hirsch. Good morning, guys.
Hey, good morning, fellas.
Good morning. Good morning, Pags.
Yeah, let's jump right into this morning. There was a contract last night that got signed in Seattle.
Yeah, baseball contracts, fellas, always fascinates me. I mean, I have this desire, it's never going to happen, of course, to be an agent of baseball players, ball players working out deals. I always study contracts. And yesterday's contract given to the Seattle Mariners rookie center fielder, Julio Rodriguez, J-Rod, we could call him, not to be confused with A-Rod or K-Rod or whatever. J-Rod was maybe the most fascinating contract I ever saw, in that it gives a lot of protection to both the team, both the player. And I'm going to tell you guys, when someone signs a long-term deal before free agency, it's always a gamble on, either the team or the player's part, okay? Because contracts tend to go up in value as the years go by. What a contract's worth today, you could outlive that contract. It could become outdated. Look at the case of Scottie Pippen with the Bulls when he signed a 7-year deal originally. The owner, Jerry Reisendorf, who also owns the Chicago White Sox, told Scottie Pippen, I think you're making a mistake. I'm going to hold you to this deal, but you're going to, this contract won't be good in a few years. And it wasn't. After a year or two, it went up. Even with the great Michael Jordan, he signed a long-term deal early in his career. But with Julio Rodriguez, I don't think you could really lose on this deal, but the team possibly can. If this player turns out to be a flash in the pan, if he turns out to be a bit of a fluke or he's a big disappointment, if he turns out to be the next Aaron Hicks, the way Hicks is going right now, the Mariners are going to be locked in for some total of $210 million. Now, that's not where the contract ends. This is how the contract is written up. Now, he's a rookie. Keep this in mind. He's not going to be a free agent for a good number of years. He's not even going to be eligible for arbitration, for 4 years. So they signed him for $120 million, okay? $15 million a year for 8 years. At the end of 8 years, okay, the Mariners have two options. They could either take an 8-year option out on the player or for $200 million, or a 10-year option for $350 million. And it all depends on where he performs in the MVP voting. We weren't specific with that. But let's say the Mariners decide they're not going to pick up this player's option after 8 years. He has his own option, 5 years, $90 million, a total of $18 million a year. So worst case scenario for Julio Rodriguez, he has 13 years and $210 million. Worst case scenario for this particular player. But if he turns out to be a superstar, let's say it turns out to be outstanding. Let's say he's the next Mookie Betts, okay? He's a Mookie Betts type player. Mookie Betts, I don't know, do you classify Mookie Betts as a superstar light? He's not. Mookie Betts is a Willie Mays. When I think of superstars, I think of Willie Mays, Ken Griffey Jr. I don't think of Mookie Betts quite in that category, but let's say somewhat close. If this player turns out to be another Mookie Betts type player, the Mariners could wind up giving him $470 million over 18 years, which comes out to a little over $26 million a year. So even though from Julio Rodriguez's perspective, if I turn out to be a superstar, I could have gotten at least $10 million a year more, at least. That's best case scenario if everything works perfect. But if this player flops completely for some crazy reason, he just goes backwards, and we see it happen once in a while. A guy just loses it. He's got 210 million worst case scenario. But the good thing about Seattle is they have this guy who's a big fan favorite, who's been one of the best players in the game from the month of May on as a rookie. He's been sensational. They have him for his whole career, basically. They have 18 years. They have him for his whole darn career. And I'm going to ask you guys this. Why couldn't the Yankees be as imaginative with Aaron Judge? Tampa Bay did that with one of their players, Franco. Atlanta did that just with one of their players. And they did it before with Ronald Acuna. Why, and even the Padres, Fernando Tatis, why couldn't the Yankees do this with Aaron Judge? Be innovative. Why couldn't they see that this guy should be a career Yankee? Let's work something out. We'll take a little bit of a gamble from our end. He's going to take something a little less. The Yankees let it go this far, and now they're probably losing Aaron Judge, at least in my view. You never know. You hope he signs with them. I don't think it's going to happen. And in a way, shame on the Yankees for showing a certain arrogance in letting it get this far. And I don't want to hear that a guy, Mac, I'm sorry, Judge said he wants to be a career Yankee. This is his chance to prove. He has to say that. They all say that. Every player says he wants to stick with his darn team. Okay? The only one who might not say that, if Keith Hernandez was traded to the Phillies, maybe he might say, I think it's better I move on at the end of the year than I go elsewhere, because Philly is.
I thought we were talking about trying to keep people paying attention. The moment you bring up Keith Hernandez, we dropped 5 people. 5 people. The moment you bring up Keith Hernandez. Nobody wants to talk about the Mets. They barely want to talk about the Yankees.
Okay, but what about this contract, guys, and how it plays out with the Judge thing? Because I'm still mad at Mac and Doc Semending about this Judge talk. Oh, they give him a fair offer. It's not about being fair doing contracts. It's about being logical. What can get the deal done? Of course, the Yankees gave Judge a fair offer, but it's not an offer he would accept. And if I'm his agent, I'll tell him, no, you don't accept it.
Well, I kind of agree with Alan a little bit, is that the grass is always greener in New York, and that's kind of part of the reason. Plus, I don't think that they're creative. If you look at it in the right way, I think that Seattle is has a little bit of small market in them.
Yeah.
I don't consider them a small market, but they have a small market mentality. Yeah. And jumping the gun, I mean, obviously, investing $210 million in a guy who, God forbid tomorrow he do something ridiculous to his leg, where he's got to get the leg amputated or something like. God forbid. I'm not trying to wish that on anything. I mean, they're stuck for $210 million, which realistically, I mean, obviously, if something happens tomorrow, it becomes a bad deal. But realistically, is still really good for them in the grand scheme of things, because they have a player who they are able to really build around. And it's like being Ken Griffey Jr. up there, or A-Rod, when they had even Ichiro, they were players that they could build around. And I never looked at Seattle as this big market, which is why they eventually lose those players, because they can't afford to play the big numbers like that. But if you want to ingrain yourself with a player, you do exactly what they're doing today. You're a rookie, but we're going to renegotiate your contract right now. You're going to make a little bit more money now as a rookie, and we want to keep you for the rest of our lives, the rest of your baseball life. And I think that was smart on their part, so that even if he overshoots his contract, it's a lot easier to tear that contract up and make a new one than it is to try to coerce somebody into a contract.
A contract's a contract.
Well, no, I'm saying if they want to pay him more money, do you think that they would be able to cancel that contract and give him more money?
No, they don't take buyouts, baseball players. It doesn't work in Major League
Even if they
Baseball.
wanted to give him more money,
What do
they
you mean
wouldn't do
more
it.
money? They
I'm
wouldn't
saying
add
in
more
5
money.
years from now, if Seattle said, you know what, we did this contract in good faith, we appreciate you did this, you've outplayed, we
No,
want
no,
to
no. It
raise it.
doesn't
We
work
want to
that
raise it
way.
$10 million a year.
No, it's going to raise on its own. It's going to raise on its own anyway. Okay. And the
I-
contract what makes it good. Listen, if he plays the whole 18 years, it comes out to a little over 26 million a year. But consider the money he's getting at the front end of the contract is substantially more than what he would have gotten early in the contract. So the interest accrues. So the contract is worth more. It's more like 30 million a year when all is said and done. I mean, it's a great deal for both sides as long as the player doesn't flop. If the player's no more than a good player, you could still live with that deal if he's a crowd favorite, if he's steady, if he's another Roy White, for example, okay, and you're paying him great money, you're okay with that deal still. But the thing is, the teams are smart now. They're getting their young stars and they're not giving them a chance to escape. They're making them career players. And the Yankees have had this arrogance. They never should have lost Robinson Cano. We know what Robinson Cano is now, the PEDs. But had he stood a Yankee, he would have still been outstanding the first 5 years after he left the Yankees, like he was with Seattle. The Yankees should have made a deal to have Robinson Cano, sign him way early, the same way with Aaron Judge. It's a certain arrogance the New York Yankee team has had. And it's heartbreaking that they're going to lose Aaron Judge, because if anyone should be linked to a team as a career player, it's him, a homegrown guy. He was the next Derek Jeter. Kids go to a game. Who did they talk about? Kids that don't know about baseball, they know the name Aaron Judge when they go to a Yankee game.
Well, I tell you, I do have to admit that I will be absolutely heartbroken if Aaron Judge leaves New York. Yeah, I'm going to be devastated. Yeah, just as you're saying.
Because the Philly, you'll turn
He ain't
him
going
away.
to Philly. He's not coming to Philly. There's no way. There's
I
no
don't
way
know.
that we'd be
Philly's
able to
got the money.
get him and DeGrom. We're going to be getting DeGrom. I think that Aaron Judge goes to New
No,
York.
you won't get DeGrom. Steve Cohen won't let it happen. Steve Cohen will check Philadelphia off, because I hear one of Steve Cohen's advisors who he likes to talk to respects is Keith Hernandez. If Hernandez says don't let him go to Philly no matter what, Steve Cohen listens to
See, there it
Keith
is. You mentioned his name again. Bam! 4 people
He's
left.
an
You guys
advisor.
stop talking about him. Nobody cares about Keith Hernandez. Keith
Let me tell you.
Hernandez is a has-been, never was type of guy who had a couple of good years, and like I said, he was an afterthought for 2 teams that won championships and one that got lucky because of Buckner. So I'm tired of hearing about Keith Hernandez.
13 Golden Gloves packs. Come on.
I did. It went from 9 to 13 now. Get
No,
out of here. 9 Golden Gloves. Stop it. Stop it. He's not
11.
Babe Ruth. He is just an okay player. He was an okay player in an era when first basemen were not that good.
Well, yeah, but the point is, it depends. But getting back with the contracts, depends on the mentality of the owners. But these smaller market teams, they're striking early. It's a gamble, but they're holding on to guys for their career, like the Braves are doing it with their philosophy. And like I said, San Diego did that with Tatis. Now the Tatis thing might backfire. It might not. He had the PD suspension. Obviously, they're not paying him for those 80 games half the year. But Tatis might turn into a terrific player. He probably will be, but there's certain maturity issues, and it's not good for the image of the team once a guy is suspended for PEDs. Before we know if the Padres had a chance to do it all over again, they would, not right after he got suspended and not during the suspension. But teams got to take a chance. If you feel you truly have a star player coming up. You sign him long term. Like the Yankees have a shortstop in their system. Their best prospect, I believe, Anthony Volpe. People feel he's a can't miss. Next year, he's projected to be the Yankees shortstop. If you really think he's going to be a star, you sign him to a long-term deal, where he's going to be a Yankee at least, the next 10 years or whatever. You take a bit of a chance. There's always a possibility the player could flop, always that chance. But you have to take a chance. Certain guys don't leave to free agency.
I hear you, but I don't think they think about it. Specifically, the Yankees don't think about that. But you know what? I'm going to use this as a jumping off point because this is a debate show, and there was a conversation I had yesterday that I'm going to pose to you guys a little differently. The conversation I had yesterday was I was talking to somebody, and we were talking about trying to figure out who was the best player, the best athlete right now in Los Angeles, bar none, across all sports. I'm going to pose it a little differently. Who do you feel is the best athlete right now in all of New York sports?
The best athlete?
The best athlete, the best New York athlete right now. I mean, because that's a shorter list, obviously. You could put Durant in that list. You could put Aaron Judge in that list. You could maybe even argue Giancarlo Stanton, although he's not the best.
Athlete, a player, Pags. You don't know how they do in other sports and how they would do the decathlon. I mean,
all right. So in the major sports realm, if you're getting paid to play a sport as an athlete, that's what I'm talking about.
Who has more flexibility, could do more athletic things, not necessarily performance, but
I'm talking about who is the best. So when I talked about LA, I said that I thought Mookie Betts, because you mentioned him earlier, and that's what spawned this whole thought process, that Mookie Betts across all of the LA teams. Now, I didn't include Anaheim in there because that includes Mike Trout and Ohtani in the mix. But when you think about all of the players that are currently in LA, you got Aaron Donald, you've got Stafford and stuff like that. So there's a number of players that could fit the bill as the best player in that city. I'm asking you about New York.
I know. If you were just talking athleticism, not performance, I'd probably say Obi Toppin with the next way he could dunk, but we're not talking about that. So I disqualify him. I'm going to surprise you with my selection. It's going to be different from both you guys. Igor Shesterkin, the New York Ranger goalie, who basically carried the team throughout the season, got him to the semis, nearly got him into the NHL finals. He was the guy who basically carried the team based on performance. He was the guy all season long. I mean, he was incredible for the Rangers last year.
And I would have put it in the range for the Rangers alone. I would have put him or Zibanejad. Those two players are probably the best two players on the Rangers, and I figured that they would get put into the mix. Like in the current mix of those players, as I think about New York in general.
But it's so unfair, like Matt could tell you, to compare a goalie, because a goalie in hockey is more important than any single player in the other major sports, with the possible exception of the quarterback. But even, maybe in a sense more important than the quarterback, because if the goalie fouls up, he could single-handedly lose the game. A bad quarterback could maybe hand off, and if you have a running game, great blocking, great defense, they could sometimes cover up for the deficiencies of a mediocre quarterback. But a mediocre goalie, he doesn't have anyone to protect him. He doesn't have like an offensive line or running backs, someone to the defense could maybe keep shots off goal, only weak shots. I understand the rest of the players extremely important too. but something about a goalie, I think they're the single most important player, even a little more so than a quarterback in a comparison. But that makes me wince because the quarterback does control the game, the
Well,
offense.
not only that, and I think of, it would be in my mind, quarterback, goalie, closer.
Yeah.
I think that a closer falls right into that same mix of importance of a of a team.
Yeah.
That when you start thinking about that, the closer really has the control to be able to win or win or complete the win or lose that game. A good goalie could definitely propel a team to a Stanley Cup. I mean, the LA Kings had a good team, but it wasn't unless Mike Quick propelled that entire team. Grant Fuhrer, when you think of Patrick Waugh, I mean, Patrick Waugh, he had an okay team in front of him. I mean, he had some good teams, but he had an okay team a lot of the time and was able to really.
Let me throw this at you just quickly. Carter Hart, okay?
Right.
Had he fulfilled his potential and been he might still be, who knows, but had he fulfilled his potential to this point and was one of the top goalies in the NHL, wouldn't that have made a world of difference from the Flyers being a doormat team to a serious playoff contender at the very least?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That the a goalie's play is going to make a big difference in how. So you're talking about Shesterkin. Go 2 years ago, not last year, 2 years ago. He had a terrible season. The team didn't change much with the Rangers. They didn't really add a ton of pieces. They didn't add anything that would have propelled them to go to the Eastern Conference Finals. The goalie played a lot better.
Well,
And I think of Martin Brodeur. Again, another guy who had a good team in front of him. They were an okay team, but there wasn't any real superstars on that team other than Martin Brodeur, and he was the one that you could say that he single-handedly won those cups. They had a good defense, so they were able to block some
the
shots.
Devils won 3 Stanley Cups. I mean, it was.
Yeah, but and I would put the lion's share of the crux of
Well, they
them
didn't
winning
have
those
a
three cups
Sidney
on.
Crosby type play on there, quite.
They did not.
Mac, who's your selection?
For the MVP,
No,
No.
for the best player in New York.
I'd have to go with the left fielder for the Yankees right now, right? I mean, he's out there.
Aaron Judge?
Yes. Aaron Judge is
More a center fielder, right fielder.
Yeah, he can play-
It doesn't matter, but Judge is your choice there.
there's no
Judge,
doubt.
well, Judge is phenomenal right now. You can't argue about it. Pags, who's your pick?
In New York, I would probably say Judge. Yeah, Judge right now. I think that Zibanejad's a little bit better player than Shesterkin, in hockey alone. Obviously the quarterbacks right now in New York aren't the best, and they don't really have any players on their football teams that really elevate themselves to
Oh, yes,
an
they
Aaron
do.
Judge type.
Yes, they do, Pags. They've got
Not to an Aaron Judge type.
Wait, guys. What, I thought one of you two would mention Kevin Durant.
You know what? I think that he's like third on the list. I feel like his attitude is what brings him down. It maybe not even be his play; it's his attitude that brings him down below the other two.
Let me talk about. Let's say we did this on Philadelphia. Two names quickly pop into my head that separate from the rest: Joel Embiid and Bryce Harper. Is that fair to say? There's immediate separation with those two over everyone else. And I don't want to hear about the Eagle wide receivers. They're not white,
No, and so ultimately, I would agree with that. Actually, the first football player that comes to mind right now, because we're doing it on a current basis, not necessarily past performance. I could put Jordan Mailata in that mix because I think he's going to be the best tackle in the league this year. You know,
He
and I
was-
think
Let him prove it first.
He played. Did
right,
he
but I mean, he's already proved it that he was the third best tackle in the league last year,
did he play?
and that was statistics.
Didn't he play center too, Pags, before he took over as a tackle?
No, not Jordan.
Okay.
About Dickerson. Dickerson was a center, and then Cam Jurgens is also a center. That they're either one of those could take over for Kelsey. And Kelsey, as great of a player he is, because we're doing it on a current basis, not necessarily what you did for me in the past. I would say that Jordan Mailata does that, and that's above Fletcher Cox. That's above Hurts. And I like I said, because that spot's also very, very important, and I'm including every player. But you're right, Joel Embiid gets put into that mix. Bryce Harper also gets put
Joel
into that
Embiid
mix.
probably is number 1 and Harper number 2, I would say right now. But 1 year from now, Devontae Smith might make a serious run at 2 of them. If he's capable of having a sensational year, and then his name comes into the equation.
Yeah, and of course Allen has to throw in for Dallas, and with Micah Parsons, and I'd almost have to agree with that.
Wait 1
beats Dak.
second. Wait. What Allen is saying, no one was higher Micah Parsons than me. I said last year, and this impressed Jim Jeffcoat when the draft was done. I said before the draft, Micah Parsons is the best player in the draft. I know the Jags had to take Micah Parsons. The Jets were locked into taking a quarterback, but I said Micah Parsons was the best player, and I'm proud of that. That played out that way. But Micah Parsons, you put him ahead of Luka. I mean, that's I know Luka's conditioning is questionable at times, but the way Luka has performed himself, I mean, it's an interesting thing. Micah Parsons has had only 1 year. No doubt in my mind, barring injury, he's going to the Hall of Fame, and not as a borderline Hall of Famer, as a solid, great Hall of Famer. But so is Luka when all is said and done. So I'm not sure, Micah Parsons, Luka, because Luka has the longevity right now. So I think you have to give Luka that little edge over Micah Parsons right now.
I could go with that. I mean, I could understand that. I mean, yeah. Similar to the way Philadelphia works, that the Eagles are above every other team. Dallas, the Cowboys are above every other team in Dallas as well. So I can understand how that comes into play. And yes, I agree. But you also have the 2-time MVP, right? That he was a 2-time MVP, Luka.
Luka, yeah, I don't listen. Embiid should have gotten it one of the years.
Yeah.
I agree. Last year should have been.
I don't with those votes. There was something on ESPN. There was a little bit of a controversy. Mike Greenberg was saying he didn't get to see Luka really play, and he had one of his interns advise him to vote for him, and then he kind of regretted the vote later on. We're just as guilty of this. How many games do we see these guys play to truly know their value? So many games are going on at once at the same time. I mean, do we really get to watch games? Even offensive linemen during games. I mean, they have a whole season going on. I mean, it's so hard to get a read on the team. If you ask me about the New Orleans Saints offensive line, am I really going to know? How many Saints games am I seeing? If they're playing the Buccaneers, I catch the game on TV, but I'm still turning to the other games. And I'm not going to watch a Saint game so intently every play and study, these players out. Even coaching staffs, they spend a ton of time on film. They have interns, so many people in their organization studying things out, because there's not time to watch all of this on their own.
Yeah, it's true, Jack. I mean, that's what I did when I was in high school ball. I was a scout. So, we were sent all around, the country at our costs. And that's what we did.
What did you have to do as a scout in particular? I mean, what were some of the responsibilities?
Well, we went out and normally you looked at the big name players. You watched everything they did, how the coaches reacted to what they did, how the players reacted to what they did, and you kind of put it all together and you brought it to brought it to your staff. So, I mean, that was some fun, boy. I'll tell you.
I tell you, I'll take whatever money you want to lose, Alan. Whatever money you want to lose on that. Just
Not
saying.
this Sunday. Next Sunday, we'll have our football predictions down. I'm not giving any hints. And, I have to sit down. I've done this since I've been a kid. I sit down with a piece of paper, pen, I write it down, football predictions, what each team is going to, their one-loss record, then how the playoffs are going to come out. And, at times I've been successful. At times I flopped. Like last year, picking the Cleveland Browns to go to the Super Bowl, I thought that was finally going to be their breakthrough. And sometimes you flop. Sometimes you get it right. Well, listen, baseball this year, I've been saying all along, my preseason prediction, the Blue Jays over the Dodgers in the World Series. I'm sticking with it. But football, I don't know who I'm going to predict to go to the Super Bowl exactly. But when you sit down with a piece of paper and pen, that's the moment of truth. No going back on those predictions. Of course, in my head, I'm kind of sorting it out. There's certain teams that are on the brink. You kind of wonder who's set to take a leap up, who might take a leap down. The one thing's for sure, there are always surprises. You're always going to overrate a team or underrate a team.
Well, what's hard as far as picking the games is trying not to be a homer, right? I mean, me, of course, I'm going to pick the Giants to finish in first place. I imagine Pags will pick the Eagles and Jack will pick the Jets to finish in first place.
No.
But it's
but only one of us would be right.
Yeah, it's true. But it's still very hard to separate the two because you want so bad for your team to win, and the players and the coaches, and you think that you got a handle on it, but you really don't. So we'll see what happens.
I agree. So are we going to institute this year, starting the first week of the season, our suicide picks? Are we going to do a suicide? So that where we like a normal suicide where you can pick only one team once, and we see who can last out of the 4 or 6 people that come on the Sunday show. We got to institute the suicide pick. Who's your suicide pick? And
I have no idea
longest.
what you're talking about. Suicide pick. What the heck?
You never did a suicide pool where you only get to pick one team. That team's got to win to keep you going.
Jack doesn't even go swimming in a pool bag. I mean, what are you talking about?
You're right. That Max correct there, actually. But you mean that you have them until they lose a game, then they
No. You pick one team each week, and if that team wins, you get to choose the next week. If that team loses, you're out.
Okay.
But you can't pick the same team twice.
You want to know why I don't believe it? Because Mac even held me to this nonsense. I don't like to make predictions based on points. It is total nonsense.
No points. Not a point.
I'm all for odds. Listen, if the best team in football, let's say the consensus best team is playing the consensus worst team, I don't mind a bet, let's say 20-1 odds. If someone wants to bet, but I don't go with points because points are nonsense. Someone can have zero knowledge of football and they could pick either team with the points, against the points. Someone guessing could beat out the biggest expert because then it's kind of becomes pure luck. One thing about the Las Vegas odds makers, they are pretty good setting up the point system, making it difficult to get a winner. I mean, that's the idea. So I hate picking a game. Oh, this Sunday, who are you picking with the points against? I just want to pick these darn games straight up.
Well, then this falls right into your category because there is no points. You just pick the team to win. If that team wins, you move on. If they lose, you're out. And trust me, this is how people get out of this because they'll choose the Bills over the Jets. And the Jets will win that game, and you lose a big group of people because everybody chose the Bills because they were a 15-point favorite. That's what happens in these things.
It's sort of like the college brackets, right? I mean, you pick one of the teams everybody goes with, and they lose, and then 3/4.
Then everybody's out, and then
Yeah.
everybody's out. So,
Yeah.
and that's what a suicide pool is all about. I've been in a couple of them. One suicide pool that I know of. I think it's $25 to get in, and the winner of that purse will win like $12,000. There's
Wow.
that many people in it.
Wow.
So think
There you
about how many people got to call in their picks and all that stuff. And like I said, I've made it to week 9 once. And then I was down to the last 30, and that's when things get really nervous because you can't pick the same team twice.
Right.
Once you pick the Bills, you can't pick them again for the rest of the season.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So there's it becomes challenging when you have tough games that you have to choose, because you could start riding against the team. So when a team is like going to be 1-15, whoever they're playing against, but eventually they got to play their division foe twice. You can't pick them then.
Well, I picked the Browns backfield, Chubbs, and I forget the other guy's name. And in the fantasy football league.
That
And
was last year. I think Kareem Hunt. Didn't he go to the Saints? If I'm not, maybe I'm not certain. I think he went to the Saints, didn't he?
it's possible, Jack. I didn't see anything about that, but it is possible.
Yeah.
So,
But that was just, again, something to think about for 2 weeks from now when we're doing our Sunday show, instituting the suicide pool, for the NFL season for everybody that comes on the Sunday show.
yeah, and people at home, welcome to join it. People are anywhere welcome to join the.
Yeah, exactly. We'll allow like Alan and Rick and Mario that show up every week to listen to the show, to let them do it. And then maybe even allow Friday Byron to get involved.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I'm looking up Kareem Hunt. No, Cleveland's getting rid of him, but no, nothing with the
A lot
Saints.
of conversation between them and the Eagles, but they don't want to give up what they're asking.
Okay.
Yeah. Cleveland is trying to make up some of their draft picks, and they're feeling like they could get a first round pick for Hunt. And I don't think so. I don't think he's worth a first round pick.
No.
There's been a conversation right now. The Steelers are interested in Andre Dillard.
Yeah.
Round pick of the Eagles.
We should. Yeah, we got a lot of good stuff to get back. We have debate questions here, Pax, too.
I understand. I'm just talking about like
gonna...
trades and possible drops.
Yes. Okay.
So let's go with debate question. Who has the bigger voice within their franchise? Aaron Rodgers with the Packers or LeBron James with the Lakers?
Go ahead, Jack.
That is an ESPN type question, what they would do, because they run out of stuff to say, and they don't want to put their sports knowledge on the line, even though some of the guys are knowledgeable. It's got to be Aaron Rodgers. I mean, I know the power LeBron James wields, but in a way, the Lakers have some power when it comes to LeBron James. I'm actually astonished that LeBron James, when he went to the Lakers, he didn't include a no-trade clause. Where did that come from? How could that be overlooked? But with that said, why would the Lakers want to trade a marquee attraction like LeBron James? Whenever the Lakers go on the road, they're the team the other cities, the fans want to flock to. That's the game they want to see because it's LeBron James. He's still a superstar name and arguably still a superstar player. You can make that argument too. But LeBron James, this is what's holding him back. He doesn't want to leave Los Angeles. His family's there. It's a great place for him to live. He doesn't want to go to one of these other cities.
I
Okay?
disagree. I disagree. And the reason why I disagree for only one reason only, the reason why he went with the no trade clause was because when his son comes in, he wants to be able to play with his son, and he's not going to be able to make the choice on where his son goes. So he's going to be able to go wherever he wants to. That's why he's only signing for 2 years. That's why he only did that extension for 2 years, because when his son comes out, wherever his son is, he's going to take the league minimum to go play with his son.
Of course, and kudos to LeBron, who I've criticized in certain ways, for doing that. It means more to him to play a little with his son. But let's see how his son Bronny develops. But whether he'll be a quality NBA player, whether he'll be at the back of the bench. But I could guarantee you this: if LeBron James is still playing well, okay, then some team is going to move up and get Bronny just to get LeBron. But that should tell you the power that's wielded within the organization. Aaron Rodgers is the Packers. Anything Aaron Rodgers says goes. He's won 2 MVPs in a row. I don't want to say more important to the Packers than LeBron is to the Lakers. The Lakers can't win without LeBron being at the top of his game. Arguably, the Packers could win with another quarterback, arguably. So you could say LeBron is maybe a little more valuable as a player, strange as it might seem. But Aaron Rodgers wields more power within the organization. They're going to give into every whim of Aaron Rodgers, what he does. They don't want to tick Aaron Rodgers off. And the Lakers know LeBron James might only be there 2 more years. They don't know. It's got to be Aaron Rodgers to me.
So, adding a little caveat to this question, because I feel like that just those 2 players are the ones that are the most prevalent in sports when they're talking about this type of question. Is there anybody else that fits into that category of being able to control the franchise as a player?
Maybe for the Nets, maybe I'm trying to
Durant.
Yeah, maybe he has as much power as those guys do. So I would have to include him.
That was the other person I thought of, Alan.
No, you want to know something? I think Joel Embiid has more power with the Sixers than Durant has with the Nets. And I'll tell you why. Because I think the Nets would be fed up enough with Durant if he starts complaining now to tell him, do one of either 2 things. Actually trade him or tell him to shut up, Kevin. You listen, you're the player. We're tired of hearing you. They kind of called his bluff and they didn't trade him. With Joel Embiid, if Joel Embiid really goes off, wants to get traded, the Sixers will do anything to make nice to Joel Embiid. They're probably doing it behind the scenes now, being very gentle with him. I think Giannis has that power in Milwaukee, but Giannis doesn't exert it. I don't think Durant has the power of Embiid or Giannis within their organizations anymore.
Well, and Alan mentioned Tom Brady, and I would add another person to that list of Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
Where I think that they have that type of, they wield that type of power. But they have that sword. They have that sword. Whether they use it or not is a different story. But that they have that sword in their arsenal to be able to use when they want to.
Not Daniel Jones. Are you kidding?
Yeah. Well, hey, listen. You can believe Daniel Jones is making calling all the shots there. All he wants. I think that Daniel Jones is fighting for a job right now.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely agree with that.
But yeah, I would almost agree that same way that I think out of the 2 of them now, and I don't think Russell Wilson falls into that category because of course he's brand new in Denver, and I think that he's falling by the wayside here a little bit. That you need to be a very specific type of player. I think when all is said and done, I feel that LeBron probably holds the most power over their franchise, more than Rodgers, more than Tom Brady, more than Patrick Mahomes. I think that LeBron James probably holds the most power over any other franchise, in my opinion.
Yeah, you'd have to agree with that, right, Jack?
I'm not quite go to Aaron Rodgers. I'll tell you what, LeBron James wanted Kyrie Irving in the offseason. The Nets were listening. They were receptive to a deal. but the Lakers didn't go overboard. They didn't go crazy to make it. Had LeBron James, if he was younger, and they knew he had a lot of years there as an LA Laker, they would have gotten the deal done one way or the other. They would have given practically the house to please LeBron. But at this stage of LeBron's career, he wields an awful lot of power, but not quite as much as if he were younger, the way he did before. That's my feeling. But Aaron Rodgers, even though he's an older player, an older quarterback, the Packers right now in position to make a serious Super Bowl run, this year, next year. And they need Aaron Rodgers to be Aaron Rodgers to do it. They don't want to take him off because of the sensitivities with drafting Jordan Love before. They don't want to go through the same thing again. And because of that, they're super sensitive not to take Aaron Rodgers off. So he wields that type of power.
Did you see Jordan Love?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Did you see Jordan Love this preseason? I mean, he looks amazing out there, Jack. He looks like
oh, come on, Mac. He wasn't amazing.
Yes, he does. He's not missing anybody. The guy is on fire.
Mac, no, he wasn't. He was making mistakes too, and he was playing against third stringers. Listen, you want Jordan Love to be good. Teams need two quarterbacks. You know what bothers me, guys? When I hear someone say about a quarterback, oh, it's his team. No position belongs to any player. It's a shared position. The quarterback position should be called a shared position. Every quarterback on that roster shares the position. One guy's going to start the games, okay, and probably play the full game, but the position is shared by everybody.
Yeah, it's called player dependent, Jack. Right? They depend on all the players on that team to play work. So, yeah.
So and ultimately, I'm gonna throw a different wrench into the same question. Do you think Tyson Fury controls what's happening in the heavyweight boxing right now?
Yes. Yeah, good.
That he's got that type of power right now.
Yeah, great point, because people want to see the fight with Alexander Usyk and Tyson Fury. And even though technically Usyk is the heavyweight champion of the world, because Fury had announced his retirement on more than one occasion, Fury also announced in the past he was giving all his money to charity. He doesn't need it, blah, blah, blah. And then we never heard what charities he gave the money to. And of course, people say, well, you shouldn't have to announce. A lot of people don't like to announce it. They just like to give. But Fury made the announcement he's giving all his money. So tell us which charity. We never heard about that after. Now he's demanding all this money. Why does he demand that money? X amount goes straight to charity. The check. You won't hear that. I mean, if you want to take credit, I don't mind. If someone doesn't want to give a penny of their money to charity, I don't mind. That's fine. But don't announce that you're giving, blah, blah, blah. And then, we don't hear anything about that, after, like, where you gave it to.
Great point.
But Fury does control the narrative, because Alexander Usyk is not as big an attraction and not nearly as big a personality as Fury. So if we want to see this fight for the world heavyweight title, and some people still regard Fury as the champion, they disregard his retirement, okay? Even the World Boxing Council is laughable. They haven't accepted Fury's retirement yet. The guy told me retires. They said, well, we're giving him a little more time. He's had personal issues in his life. So they're waiting on him. And Fury himself told Alexander Usyk's people, get the checkbook out. Meanwhile, he's retired, but he's telling him to get the checkbook out, and then he's going to fight, okay? Yeah. But he controls the narrative. He's the big name. And I can mention you two guys. Isn't he the big name to you much more so than Alexander Usyk, Tyson Fury? Would you guys agree on that?
I mean, obviously, I wonder how much of that is because Usyk does not speak good English. That he's not very understandable. That it's that's what I feel like. I feel like that's part of the problem. That because he doesn't speak English, that he's not as well known. Because I knew that there was a guy named Usyk and that he held the belt, but I didn't know anything about him or Joshua. I knew about Tyson Fury because Tyson Fury is the one. He's the fat boy that's winning these things. He doesn't look like an athlete. He's kind of goofy looking, and he's winning. He's the heavyweight champion of the world, and he's fun. He's a funny guy. He's personable, and he's strong, and he's the heavyweight champion of the world. You have then Usyk, who's as far as the way he looks, he's an imposing guy in terms of his appearance and his speak the language very well. That would really, yeah, he might be a funny guy, but we would never know that because we don't understand Ukrainian or Russian.
Okay, but let me throw this at you. Did the language barrier ever hold Roberto Duran back as being tremendously charismatic here in the U.S.? And he didn't really speak English. Julio Cesar Chavez. Those guys get transcended a bit. But you have a good point. Usyk's personality is a little more reserved. You don't hear him talking much. He speaks English, And what about the Klitschkos? It took them a while. There were two Klitschkos. We didn't know the difference for years. Vladimir Vitaly, I did, of course, but the average fan would refer to them as the Klitschko brothers. Okay?
Right.
Just like now we have a couple of terrific junior middleweight / middleweight, the Charlos, Jamal. I mean, they even just, their names are practically the same outside of one letter. People can't tell them apart, the average person. Yeah. Even boxing people have to struggle a little bit once in a while to distinguish them. But, big personalities sell. Listen, guys, I joked about ESPN before. Who gets the broadcast positions? The loudmouth blowhards throughout their career. Let's be honest about it. I like Charles Barkley. I listen to him now. I happen to think Charles is a good guy, a very good guy. But he was a blowhard. Pax, you could say through his years in Philadelphia, a loudmouth blowhard a lot of the time. Michael Irving, in constant trouble. He gets a plum position on ESPN. Keyshawn Johnson, Mr. I guy. Selfish guy, degraded his fellow wide receiver, Wayne Corbett, who would have made, a great tandem with him. And you look at Patrick Beverley's getting these opportunities on ESPN. Big mouth, on and on. Richard Sherman has a great career in broadcasting waiting. Big mouth blowhard is Richard Sherman. Okay?
I'm just waiting for my contract then, because I don't know of anybody who's louder than me and is more outspoken than myself. I don't have any championships to go along with it yet, unless you count my softball.
But there's a difference involved, Pags. I can't say those guys, even though they were blowhards, that they necessarily crossed the line and took cheap shots the way you did when you were yelling at Russell Westbrook and calling him Russell Westbrook.
I only said that one time just recently. I would just do the Daryl chant to Russell. Russell.
No, Russell Westbrook. No, I shouldn't have said that. In all seriousness, I mean, he seems like a very nice, kind-hearted guy, but he's got to understand how you play the game. You have to ignore these things, okay? When I taught, the students would try to get under my skin. I'd have some rough classes calling me Baldy in the beginning, okay? And I established myself where they stopped calling me Baldy because they were calling me it one day. I told them off that there was going to be discipline. I demanded to be treated with respect. And I called one kid out. He got mad. He was getting disciplined, getting sent to the dean's office. I said, "You never call me Baldy again. You don't come up to me and call me Baldy. You call me Mr. Baldy." And the class, after a while, they got tired of it. A new kid came into class once and he called me Baldy, and the other kids told him, "Stop it. It doesn't bother him." And they put an end to it with the humor. And there was one other teacher who would go berserk. He was bald. They would call him Baldy, and he couldn't take it. And it was so funny I enjoyed watching him lose it, over being called baldy by the kids. I couldn't wait for the kids to call him it because I was in the audience kind of cracking up. And that's it as a player. You ignore this stuff. Like
You know what? But there are certain people that just are unable to do so, and like there are certain times, and I know, like I said, I know that Russell Westbrook definitely hears. He definitely hears what's
Oh, yeah.
going on. And I liken this because I'm one of those guys that when I have the opportunity, I am going to just go after a player and do whatever I can to try to get under their skin. Sometimes it works. Jeremy Swayman, the goalie for Boston, he came to Philadelphia. He gave up 6 goals the day that I said, they're going to get a short-handed goal on you. Here they come right now. And then they scored on that one shot. And I did a little dance. He couldn't do nothing about it. And I got the whole crowd to start doing. Like I said, I'm a big
Yeah.
fan of the Darryl chant. So like Jeremy, and of course he had a terrible game that day. Turn it around. I tried to do it to Giannis. Giannis had a great game that day, and I was nonstop on Giannis. It was just I just kept going, because you can't stop. It's like once you start that whole process, you can't just stop because then you let them win. So you keep going, and he wound up having a great game. It didn't bother him even a little bit. John Collins from Atlanta, when we were in the playoffs, I was riding him the entire time. He started actually bantering back and forth with me a little bit.
Golden Wizard,
So
right?
crowd that the crowd started to realize that what was going on. Yeah, he became a fan favorite of mine. I'm a fan of John Collins now, who's not a Philadelphia player at all, but because he was able to start to go back and forth with me because it didn't bother him. And that was what makes it fun. Some players can handle it, some players cannot, and when they can't, it makes it for a really difficult day.
Sometimes a visiting player can actually win fans over if he has a sense of humor. Let's say he throws an air ball up and he points to it and says, you guys got me on that one. Good going. And then he hits another one. And he says, come on, give me a little applause, fellas. Like with humor. And then at the end of the game, he gives a fist bump to a few players on the way out. It talks to them. They kind of like him, and he'll tell them, you guys are great fans. Yeah, I love playing in front of all of you. They're not like I don't want to use the word hostile, but once they get on the guy's skin, it's like, you can't let it bother you.
Yeah. Who can forget what happened with Artis, right? I mean, that guy went charging into the stands and
oh
my God, that was crazy.
Yeah. But there's certain lines, Mac, I feel you absolutely can't cross. You can't talk about a guy's family. If a guy had a hardship in his family and you yell something out, you've crossed the line that even your fellow fans should go against you.
I 100% agree.
You cannot cross. If the guy has suffered a tragedy in his life and you use that as a motivation to get him to perform poorly, no. That means you should be banned from the arena. It has to be kept to the court, to the field. You can get on the guy all you want based on the field. You can laugh at him if he makes an error on the field. Call him anything you want, not curse at him, And that's okay. That's fair game. But there's certain things you just can't get personal. Unless it's harmless.
I agree. I want to, first off, I don't curse at the player. Because again, once the moment you start to curse at the player, I feel like that's crossing a line.
Wait. Is this fair? Guys, is this fair personal? This I think is fair. A-Rod is getting up to bat. Let's say he's still playing. And they're yelling, J-Lo, J-Lo, J-Lo while he's at bat. Something like that.
Or PEDs.
If a guy took PEDs,
take a steroid. You know what I mean? It's like you could do all of those things. All of those are okay because he's
right.
That falls into the category. Hey, listen.
Yeah.
When I'm at a hockey game and I'm going after a goalie, I find out where this goalie's from. I talk about his hometown. I find out what his favorite meal is and if mommy cooked it for him, and I'm like, I start saying, hey, listen, stop wetting the bed if they're a young kid, or maybe it's nap time, or if it's a real old player, it looks like you're tired out there. It looks like you might need to take a breather, like things like that. I love doing that type of stuff. And that is all fair game. But like when you heard some of the things, now I feel like some people try to do that. But like when LeBron has somebody kicked out of a game, like the guy and girl that he got kicked out, where the girl yelled, "I hope your kid gets hit by a car."
Oh,
What?
that's awful.
No, absolutely not. That is definitely below the belt. You don't do that.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah, you don't wish bad on somebody's family
You
for
should
any reason.
You should get kicked out. To say something like that. I
Right,
mean,
exactly, and they were escorted out. They were escorted out.
Let me ask you guys this: players trash talk one another. If they can
absolutely.
do it, the fans should be allowed to. So and I kind of wonder in a way, guys, if players are getting personal, and sometimes it does happen. Carmelo Anthony, for example, he was looking to fight with Kevin Garnett behind the scenes because Kevin Garnett was getting so personal with stuff he was saying during the game. And also, Gary Payton was getting very personal with another player, talking about his mother, and the player couldn't fight him on the court, but he was so upset after his agent saw Gary Payton's agent, so Gary Payton could see the guy to apologize and squash it. If these guys are going to get so personal with one another, that's the only exception I could see. Then if the fans do exactly the same thing the players are doing to one another, I don't want to hear the players ever complaining about a fan. Their trash talking has to be within limits of the game, like Larry Bird telling them, oh, I'm going to do this, and put it in your face or whatever. So I feel the same standard the players have to be held to within their own community as they want to hold the fans to.
I agree.
And I agree. I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but I know that if I was close enough to banter back and forth with LeBron James, LeBron loves talking with the fans. He loves bantering back and forth. Of course, it's got to be within reason. You can't be talking stuff that again hits below the belt. When you start talking about somebody's kids, family, like I said, this team is not my mother, so I don't ever have to defend any team's honor. They get paid too much money for me to care. You know what I mean? Like about that. However, these are human beings still. And as a human being myself, I don't want anybody talking about my mom or my kids. So I wouldn't do that to them. And I can appreciate and understand that. Where some of these people are just straight asses. You know what I mean? They just don't know how to act. And they think that because this guy's making so much more money, that allows you to be able to berate that should be okay, and it's not okay. They're still human beings.
And I don't want to hear about the beer talking. I don't want to hear about any of that crap. You're responsible for your own actions in the end. That's all there is to it.
That is correct. I 100% agree with that as well. Hey, listen, we're a little good. We're a little late for a break.
Okay, Okay,
so let's go take a break, and we can bring this back right after these messages from our local sponsors.
Sounds great.
And
the Hometown Foundation is excited to bring back the Dream Ride Experience, August 26th to the 28th at Connecticut's Farmington Polo Club. Join us in celebrating the accomplishments of our Dream Riders while enjoying live music, a car and motorcycle show, family fun zone, pet adoptions, canine demonstrations, the Fireman's Chili Cook-Off, and much, much more. Get your tickets today.
Mr. Green? Mr. Green?
Yeah.
You need any help? I just want you to know, I think you're the best ever.
Yeah, sure.
Want my Coke? It's okay, you can have it.
No.
Really, you can have it.
Okay.
A Coke and a smile makes me feel good. Makes me feel That's the way it should be. I like to see
Hey, kid.
the whole world is smiling with me. Coca-Cola as life. Have a Coke and
Thanks, Mean Joe.
smile.
You know, one of the best things about being an ex-big leaguer is getting freebies to the game. Call the front office, bingo. And once these fans recognize me, I probably won't even have to pay for my light beer from Miller. Down it! I love them. These fans know I drink light because it's less filling and it tastes great. Good seats, huh?
You're in the wrong seat, buddy. Come on.
Oh, I must be in the front row.
Come on.
Light beer from Miller. Everything you always wanted in a beer and less.
Good seats, hey, buddy? He missed the tag! He missed the tag!
What's up, everybody? Philly Sports Guy here, and it's fantasy football season. And if you want me to announce your order of your draft, all you have to do is go to Cameo. Go ahead and look up the Philly Sports Guy and tell me who's in your draft, and I'll choose who goes first, who goes last, so that you don't have to worry about whether the commissioner's cheating and getting the first pick again this year. So reach out to the Philly Sports Guy on Cameo for not only fantasy football, but for all your messaging needs. I'll give you a shout out. I'll get happy birthday. I can say hello to the troops overseas or anything else you want to have messaged about. So reach out for the Philly Sports Guy on Cameo. And go Birds! Yeah!
Trisha's having a sleepover tonight. Can I go?
I wonder about Lucy's friends. What should I say? I know you're only 10, but one of these days a friend will offer you a drink. And alcohol at your age can lead to so many things. None of them good.
So can I go to the sleepover?
Lucy, I want you to promise me
I
something.
finished my homework.
Bigger promise. If there's any drinking, I want you to say, "No thanks, not my thing."
Mom.
I promise you. Your real friends won't care. Deal?
Sure.
Really?
I promise, Mom.
They really do hear you.
Did you pack your toothbrush?
For tips on how to start the talk, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. A public service message from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
I mean, you can see right now, without LeBron, Lakers are struggling.
Let me tell you about a team I hate, all right? I know the Dallas Cowboy fan is here, so I had to make sure he knew how much I hate this.
Oh, I'm ready.
I've often said that the people who run baseball, they try very hard to ruin it.
I'm from Brooklyn. I don't have a problem saying it to his face. Oh, I'm from Brooklyn. Hey, get us any.
And we are back again. And turn that music off. As I'm just now getting a hold of this whole music thing. I feel like I should be playing that a little bit better, but it's anyways, we're back in the thing.
And the people love it, Pags. You're taking them backstage. You let them know what the studio is all about. You know, Jack loves it too.
Yeah, hey, listen, I've tried to play these cards. Like I said, I'm still learning myself. So it's never doing this before. I'm just working my way into radio.
Yes.
Because I'm told I've got a face for radio.
Yes. That's great. Great.
I compare what we're doing to the Independent League of Baseball. You know, we're playing in the stadium, fans, the whole thing, and we're still looking to get to the major leagues. I mean, we're waiting, all individual, Fox, ESPN, are they going to come calling, another network? You know, we're kind of waiting on it. The best thing I have going for me, I'm hoping they kind of want the old guy, you know, a little different from all the youth that they have going on.
We don't need them, Jack. We don't need them at all. We're just as big. We're getting just as big as they are now, and we'll eventually have maybe as much money. We'll see.
And we are better looking. We are better looking in general. Yes. That's where it really makes the biggest difference.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, but listen, but I'm under a team-friendly contract right now. I'm waiting to go free agent. You know, I mean,
you know what? And listen, you know what happens the moment that you go and leave the nest. The moment you go and leave the nest and get that big contract, everybody's following. That's how that works.
Someone else is coming aboard too, Jack. So you do what you want to do.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
Getting back to the debate questions, I'm going to drop down to one of the later ones that we have on our list, because I know that this is going to get a little bit of a rise out of Mac in comparison. Yeah, right now, it is projected that soccer in the United States in the next 5 to 7 years is going to overtake hockey as worth more as a league, and that the franchise are going to be worth more in general than a hockey franchise. And being in Philadelphia is obviously one of the bigger hockey towns, or at least was one of the bigger late. This is where, I feel like that corporations shouldn't run a franchise, that you need to absolutely have a face. And sometimes that face is, whether that face is a good face or a bad face, you need to have a face. And when you don't have that face, it becomes a bigger deal. And whatever, what have you. That being said, it is projected within the next 5 to 7 years that the MLS as a whole will be worth more than the NHL. And do you feel that is going to continue, or the NHL will be able to make a resurgence now with this new contract with ESPN?
Listen, Pags, I don't know what you're watching at home or at the bar or whatever, but I know that from what I see, that soccer is still the most boring sport in the world. When you can take a ball and purposely, with your defense, slow down the game and make the game, a lot more boring, there's something wrong within the system there. So like I said, I don't know where you're watching this from, but there is no way that soccer will ever take over hockey as being more popular. And hockey really is not very popular also. So there's no way that soccer, you can even bring Pele back if you want. There is no way soccer will ever match up against any of the major four sports.
So, Mac basically covered it for me, Pags, for the most part. I mean, soccer had its chance in 1977 with the New York Cosmos. Pele came to the New York Cosmos. They had all these great international stars, the Cosmos: Giorgio Chinaglia, Carlos Alberto, Steve Hunt, Shep Messing, a diversity, the major stars from the different countries. And they did for a while pack the Meadowlands Giants Stadium. Yep. Pele's debut, 62,000 there. I was amongst them. I'd go to Cosmo games. I loved the Cosmos, but it kind of faded out. The Europeans who relocated to America, who missed their game, the game of soccer would show up, but it didn't take off with the Native Americans, the ones who were born here, lived here their whole life. And it's just not going to be, if it hasn't overtaken hockey by this point. And keep in mind, they made their big move in the late 70s. It's not going to happen. Listen, I don't know how the soccer team in Philadelphia compares to the Flyers right now, whether it's somewhat close. If it is, it's only because the Flyers was so pathetic the last year, lots of empty seats. But if the Flyers start winning again, they're going to leave hockey in the dust, way behind, not even close. You're going to have to get a championship soccer team in that city to just barely edge out the worst team in the National Hockey League who resides in the same city. That's the only possible scenario. But I will say this. If you do have a great hockey team, it could make a difference. I've said this on the past show. A buddy of mine who lives in Tampa, He rated the teams. He told me the Buccaneers are far and away the most popular team in Tampa. When the Lightning won 2 cups in a row, they were actually a little ahead of the baseball team, the Rays, because they got an audience. But that's not going to last. As soon as the Lightning start falling off a little more, they went to the finals last year. The Rays will go back on top of them, again. But it's just not going to happen. They're not going to – the best, soccer team, isn't going to edge out the best hockey team, not for long, at least, in the city.
Well, so I'm going to disagree with you, and I'll explain why. First off, Philadelphia maybe not the best case scenario to explain this. New York is not the best case scenario. And soccer games from the 70s, when hockey was in its heyday, where people loved going there because of the brutalness of it, the fighting that would happen and all that stuff, that was more exciting than soccer. The way that hockey is sort of constituted now, hockey has become a fairly boring game. And if you don't understand it, you won't get it. And you don't want to try to get it. You don't want to learn. And that's part of the problem that hockey has right now. They don't really push their stars at all. And it's gotten boring because it's all finesse. It's no more checking or fighting or anything like that. They've tried to take the brutalness out of the game, which is what was the draw. So because of that, you're losing a lot of that. But in places like Atlanta or like down south in a lot of places like Charlotte even, that soccer is bigger than the football teams. The Atlanta FC sells out the BMW or Mercedes-Benz Dome, and the Falcons have a hard time getting at least at half full. So you can't tell me that soccer is just not going to do it just because you guys don't like it and you remember it from the 70s. Baseball games take 4 and 5 hours at a shot. Football games take 3 to 3.5 hours. Hockey games and basketball games take about 3 hours. The last 5 minutes of a basketball game takes just as long as the first 43 minutes.
Compare those two sports, Pags. There's a lot more action in football, basketball.
First off, again, you were thinking about soccer back in the day when soccer was a slow game. The MLS, first off, the goals that they score in the MLS are much different than across the world. They score a lot more goals here. Like the Union, last game they won 6-0. There's games 4-3, 5-2, games like that are happening now. There's a lot more action, and the game is over in 2 hours' time. They don't stop the clock. They don't do whatever. It's a lot more interesting to watch, especially right now here. Now, if you're watching Italian soccer or the European soccer, it's a different type of game than they play here. But in the U.S., it's a lot more physical. In Mexico, if you were to watch a Mexican soccer game, they are very physical down there. It's like watching old time hockey is almost, where they're checking each other, they're pushing each other off the ball, they're slide tackling hard and things of that nature. So, but we're talking about the U.S. and we're talking about it against hockey specific. And there's already franchises that are worth more than hockey teams. That the franchise in Atlanta, the 2 LA franchises right now, the 2 LA soccer teams generate more money than both of the LA football teams, and that's a real statement. That is absolutely for real. That the game between the 2 LA teams that happen every year garner more attention than any other football game, and probably rivals when the Lakers and the Clippers play. So I know that you guys are older and just not interested in soccer, but the truth of the matter is that soccer has evolved and has become a much better sport to watch, specifically in the U.S., and will overtake hockey, and is in certain markets will overtake basketball.
No,
I have a feeling, Pags, you're making up these figures, because I find it really hard to believe they could be making more revenue than the LA Rams with the team.
So if you want to do some research, it's the LA Galaxy and the LAFC.
I think you're making it up to bolster your argument during this debate.
I don't have to make it up. The facts are real.
Yeah, you're manipulating the numbers here.
I'm not. What makes the LA Rams more profitable as a franchise is the building now. The building gives them more because that's worth. They just built a $2.1 billion facility. That makes that franchise worth $4 billion. You can't take that away, and that actually makes sense. Truth of the matter is that the LA teams, both soccer teams, sell out their stadiums on a very consistent basis, and they bring in more revenue. If you went into LA Stadium this year, LA Stadium was kind of sold out a little bit, but it was sold out by opposing teams bringing their fan bases in there because LA people could care less about football. They ain't interested. When the Rams won, you saw the tens of hundreds of people go out onto the streets, and they looked like they were having a little tea party out there. When any other franchise wins, there was more people excited in Detroit than there was in LA when the Rams won the Super Bowl. So don't tell me that you can't believe it. It's a real thing. And you can take a look at all the numbers. The numbers make sense. If it wasn't for the building, the Rams would like I said, an NFL franchise is worth $1 billion at the very least right now. And you can't argue that because of the TV contracts that come with it. So in that alone makes every football team worth more than every soccer team because soccer just doesn't have those contracts.
You're drinking the Kool-Aid again. You're drinking the Kool-Aid. There is, if you're gonna compare the soccer to the football sport, there's just too many moving parts. You're not just talking about players.
Absolutely, you are 100% correct. I can't compare them. Is kind of what I'm getting at, but I can compare it to hockey. Hockey is a sport that is losing fans across the board. Across the board, because they got a commissioner who is like the worst commissioner in all of sports with Gary Bettman, and he doesn't know how to market his best players. Last year, and this will even tell you, last year the Flyers are playing the Penguins, and that's a big matchup, and it doesn't matter how good both teams are. That's always a big matchup. They put Sidney Crosby on there on the commercial, the television commercial. And right after they showed Sidney Crosby, they showed yours truly. So when I'm the best thing that's on the ice for the Flyers, that's a problem. That's a problem. When they're showcasing me next to Sidney Crosby, that's an issue. That's an issue. And that goes league wide. And that's the problem right now with hockey in comparison to soccer, because soccer does push its people.
Let's call this one to be continued. Let's move on in the debate thing because we'll be arguing back and forth this one. I don't see an end in sight. Normally, if I see an end in sight at some point, I'll feel let's continue this. But Mac's not going to get off his position. You're not going to get off yours. And I'll call it a draw. How's that? Even though I side with Mac.
All right. Since I got this question dismissed.
I come from boxing. Bad decisions. I turned in a bad scorecard, and
there you go. He put in a draw, even though he really cared for the other one. He's like, I got the better punches in. I'm sure to get the draw. I'm a little upset.
I had it a draw, even though.
Yeah. That's what happens when you own the belt. They don't want to give away the belt on a decision. So you have to knock out the champ.
Right.
All right, here we go. Let's go with this question here. What two teams would make the most entertaining World Series match?
That's kind of an unfair one, I think, even though I recommended it. I mean, it's got to be Wait. What sounds like he sides with Jamie and calling it?
He's saying that Alan's saying that soccer is better than hockey.
But the answer to the question, the World Series, easy.
Correct.
The Yankees and the Dodgers. I can't see any other fit. But I know St. Louis is very popular in the Midwest. Something's to be said for that. I'm talking from a New York mentality. Okay? If I lived in another location, my thought process, I realized, would be different. But how can you go wrong with the Yankees and Dodgers? Let's look at the American League. Who would you rather see in the World Series? Toronto, Tampa Bay, Baltimore, Houston? I mean, there's still resentment against Houston where people don't want to see him get there. Minnesota, the Cleveland Guardians would be a sentimental favorite. Seattle. I mean, I just don't see any other team that's more appealing in the American League than the Yankees, clearly. And they have the marquee player, Aaron Judge, which would be good for national ratings. You know, and they could throw Garrett Cole out on the mound. He's good for ratings. It's Giancarlo Stanton. They're charismatic, better for ratings. They're the Yankees. Now, the National League, their number teams, Yankees and Mets, don't mean anything nationally, really. In New York, it would be the biggest thing, but not quite nationally.
And they proved that. They proved that New York, the subway series didn't really draw nationwide.
The Braves wouldn't be bad that they're defending champions, but I can't elevate them over the Dodgers. The Phillies wouldn't be bad with Bryce Harper. They would actually be an attraction, okay? They would make for a fun World Series. St. Louis, Pujols, Swan Song. This is it for Albert Pujols. Arguably more popular throughout the country than the Yankees because you consider the Midwest.
Yeah,
okay?
and you got to mention the history, Jack, too, with Stan the Man.
History. But with that, Yankees and Dodgers have the stars. Mookie Betts, Kershaw, a bunch of others. They've got the star players also to throw out there. So I think it's Yankees, Dodgers. I mean, I don't think it's that close. You can make an argument for St. Louis. Bryce Harper, I know, is an attraction with the Phillies. But still, Yankees, Dodgers, even though if the Mets somehow played the Yankees a Subway Series, just the idea of Scherzer and DeGrom taking the mound would elevate the Mets nationally, those two. And Pete Alonso's charismatic. I understand all that. Yankees Dodgers is the magic name. There's still the history there. That's what I go for.
I mean, I think as far as the appeal of, well, first off, you're talking the two biggest markets in the country, so that's going to have a really big appeal. And then you start to diversify across the country, where people from LA and people from New York have moved to other places. So that's going to create a kind of a stir. I just don't feel like that the Yankees have the pitching to match the Dodgers pitching in terms of the big names that the Yankees used to have. When they had Clemens and even Andy Pettitte and those names in the pitching matchup, because I think the pitching matchup makes the biggest deal. Realistically, unfortunately, I think that the best World Series would necessarily be two NL teams. Because I think, like, even if you had the Mets and the Dodgers or the Phillies and the Dodgers in a World Series, that would be great. But of course, that can't happen. That's the NL Championship. Right. I think that what happens is that the East Coast mentality always kind of shines through. Where if the Mets or the Yankees, now being in Philadelphia people do not care when their team's not in the series or in the playoffs. So they seem to fall off and trail off. And it's only really the baseball enthusiasts watching the game. After that, it goes dead here in Philly. That being said, if you had Philadelphia in there, I feel that the Mets and that the Yankees, if they had to go up against Houston, that all of a sudden there's going to be a big swell of Philly support if it was the Phillies against the Astros in the World Series. I think that's happened the same way with the Mets or any NL team that goes up against the Astros because of who the Astros are. Right now, it's still too soon that the Astros are the villains of Major League Baseball, and nobody wants to see them win. I'm not a Braves fan in the slightest bit, but I was rooting for them last year because I don't want to see the Astros win anything, because I feel like that they should vacate that other one that they did win. But that's neither here nor there because that's all, they're not going to do it. They're not taking away the ring. That's going to go on. Before
Matt goes, I got to ask you a question before Matt gives his selection. Yankee fans seem to swarm other stadiums. I went to a game at Camden Yards once, and hardly anyone was rooting for the Orioles. It seemed to be like a Yankee home game. It was crazy. When the Yankees come to Philadelphia, how much Yankee fans could actually filtrate the stands? I mean, what percentage might be Yankee fans?
35%.
So that's
So for instance, last night, I mean, I'm around. We got the Phillies and the Pirates, and I ran into 4 or 5 Yankee jerseys. So it's not unrealistic. The Yankees are the
what about
franchise.
Mets in Philadelphia.
And Mets and Philly, Mets fans travel really well. They travel really well. When they came to Philly, they bring the 7th Street Army or whatever it is, the 7 Line Army, because to get from Union Station to Citi Field, it's the 7 Line. So it's the 7 Line Army that came down. They brought 2,000 people with them. Mm-hmm. So 2,000 people takes up 6 sections. So I go up there. I'm the only Philly fan in a sea of blue. And they love me up there. Don't get me wrong. I love Mets fans. When I went to Citi Field, they loved me up there. When they came down here, I welcomed them. I have a good time with them. It's a blast. And we know how to have fun with each other. And of course, we got our butts beat, but it doesn't matter. It's all fun. You know what I mean? I can take the beating when I'm supposed to, and I can dish it out to them the same way. And it makes it a good time. When I met the super fans of the Mets and the cowbell guy and the pin man and stuff like that. Those guys are good guys, and Mets people are good people. I just don't like their baseball team, and they don't like mine. And there's a rivalry that goes back years and years and years, and that's what makes it interesting and fun.
Mac, which 2 teams would have the greatest appeal to play in the World Series? What matchup?
Well, of course, we already mentioned the Yankees, Mets, and those teams. But I think if you want to get the West and the Central involved in it, you would have to, maybe go, to Seattle, maybe have to go to Oklahoma, Arizona, states like that have no Major League Baseball. They got his minor league system down there. So
Arizona, the Diamondbacks,
right? So I would imagine those would be the teams that people would want to see that would not normally follow baseball during that time of year. Yep.
And I think, yes, I think that the premier matchup would be Yankees-Dodgers, but I think a Phillies-Mariners World Series would garner a lot of interest. One, because of this J-Rod kid, because he's the new up-and-coming guy.
Make him as a new star, yeah.
You know what I mean? That Seattle being in the World Series is not your common name to hear about. So you're like, oh, how did they get there? Right. Like even Cleveland, the Guardians. I think the Guardians could make a big splash in the playoffs this year because I think that they have the pitching that if everybody could start to pitch right, that should take over and possibly get somewhere in the playoffs. That being said, do I think that they're really a World Series team? No, but I think that they could surprise somebody, that they could possibly surprise or beat the Astros, that they could beat the Yankees in a 7-game series. That would be a shock. That would be like shocking the world type thing. And for that alone, there would garner some interest in that. But if it was a St. Louis Houston World Series, I think that would be a complete dud, that nobody would care about.
I'm thinking which would be the worst World Series, maybe the Tampa Bay Rays against the San Diego Padres, something like that. No World Series would be that bad. You can always say there's appeal to one team and point to a couple of players.
Or Tampa Bay versus Florida, right? I mean, that.
Yeah, but no, a team that realistically has a chance to be in the playoffs and get there at this point.
Yeah, that would even be worse. Tampa Bay and St. Louis. I think nobody would watch
St.
that.
Louis isn't known as St. Louis because they're popular in the Midwest. No matter who they play, there'll be some interest there. Now in New York, there'd be no interest at all. And in Philly, maybe none. But in that part of the country. Like St. Louis is a magic name. The Yankees, Dodgers, they're magic names. Braves are defending champions. That's the only thing they would have going for them. But I agree, Braves and Tampa Bay wouldn't be too appealing. But you could say you could look at it, can the Braves repeat? That would be the storyline.
And Philadelphia, Tampa Bay.
By the way, the Tampa Bay extended 1 year Tyler Glasnow. You know, he was going to be up for arbitration next year. So I think they gave him like 2 years, 30 million. It'll take care of arbitration. He's getting 5 million next year and then 25 million the year after. Yeah, Pujols' last hurrah is going to draw a lot of attention. Absolutely.
That would probably be the biggest draw to the World Series. That would be the only real draw.
Guys, what about a player that announces his retirement? I didn't pick the Braves to repeat. I picked the Blue Jays this year.
Don't lie.
Guys, what about a player who announces his retirement like Pujols? This is his last year. And all of a sudden, the guy is really putting it all together, and he's still got what it takes. Can he rescind his retirement? I don't think Pujols is going on the farewell tour that Mariano Rivera and Derek Jeter quite went on. Okay? If you're going on that type of farewell tour, I don't like the idea of you saying, oh, I had a great year. I'm going to stick around one more year. Okay? Listen, remember one of our, and I won't call him a colleague because we don't work with him, but a colleague within the industry, Mike Francesa on WFAN. Mike Francesa went on his radio farewell tour for his show on WFAN. There he had all these guests reminiscing, wishing him the best of luck. A few months later, he was back. What kind of nonsense is that? You retire. Don't. If you want to retire and come back, it's okay. But don't do it with a farewell tour. Some players do it figuring they may be on their last legs, and then all of a sudden they feel, I still got what it takes. And then they come back. Do you know what Joe Girardi did with Mariano Rivera? All the way at the end of the season, after Rivera had been on the farewell tour, he said, Mariano, you're still sure you want to retire? Because he was effective. If Mariano had come back, it would have been a total sham. You know, total sham. I don't mind that much. A guy says, this is my last year, but I don't want any farewell things because you never know. There's always a chance I might not retire, but I'm planning to. And then if he doesn't retire, I'm good with it. Don't have all these ceremonies and all, and then you're back. I don't like that.
Well, like I was going to say, you know, we have a cousin that has a baby shower, right? And she, you know, she's getting all these great gifts for her baby. And, you know, in the following year, there's the tag sale selling the same things we bought her the year before. So, my God, I don't know.
Well, listen, what about this one that's a moral ground and funny? You know, a buddy of mine gets married 6 days before I did. Okay, I'm not mentioning any names. It's 6 days before I did. I leave to my honeymoon. I get back. He gives me a call. How's everything? Blah, blah, blah. I says, how's everything? You and the wife. He says he's separated now. 9 days it lasted. Okay. Now, should you give the wedding gifts back? He had a big wedding. My feeling, at least at the time, look, he got married in good faith. It all exploded. Of course, they moved in with the girl's, mother, and that kind of set things. Then the wheels fell off. I'm not blaming the mother. Whatever went wrong, whatever. But the question is he obligated to give the gifts back? And I felt most people said yes. I felt no, because he went into it in good faith, whether it lasted a day or it lasted 50 years, isn't the issue. But that's would be a debatable question if this wasn't a sports show. We'd go back and forth on it.
And just to answer that question, just specifically that question right there, that's why you are given a year to give a gift. It's because I never bring a gift with me to the wedding. Bring me to the wedding, and then 3 months later is when I'm going to send the gift. And most I want to make sure that you've made it.
Most Italians give cash anyway, right? Most Italians they have the roll of cash, yeah. So
right. So but like I says, I usually send it later because it's always like it says, custom says that you get a year. Well, in 3 months from now, after you guys are back from the honeymoon and you've blown all the money that you got already, when you get my gift, now you're all excited about it because it's the only gift that you got here in 3 months after the fact, because nobody else is giving gifts.
Sometimes people don't give and they claim they gave an envelope with cash, and then they could feel, well, I gave it. It must have gotten lost. There's no way of proving it. Notice it never gets lost when it's a check, because you could always prove whether the check was cashed and then cancel it or whatever and write a new one. But
yeah. I usually give them a card, and in that card is cash.
Right.
So that's how it should get done, at least in a real sense. If you're just going to give them cash in their bird box, then you can say whatever. But that's a whole different scenario. Let's get off of the wedding topics, because although I was a wedding planner at one point in my life, I'm never getting married, because I'm not. Later get divorced, which is what would happen after they marry me. So
a lot more expensive going out than coming in. That's for sure.
Exactly. And I ain't got. First off, hey, I don't really have to worry about that, because half of nothing is nothing. So they can have half of everything that I've got, which I ain't got much. So, next question here. This is a good one, since this falls right into our wheelhouses. The better 1-2 punch: Durant and Irving, Harden and Embiid.
You go ahead, Jeff.
I have to go with the net duo of Durant and Irving, because I don't trust James Harden. You don't trust Kyrie Irving, and I don't blame you. Can't trust Kyrie Irving. You can trust Kevin Durant to show up and play hard. He's not going to dog it during the year. He might mouth off a little. There might be some discontent, but he's going to play hard. Kyrie Irving is unpredictable, but I think he is going to show up and work hard the whole year, because it's his contract. Yeah, he's going to be a free agent at the end of the year. He knows what's on the line dollar-wise in that sense. And the reality, I think, hit Kyrie Irving because there were no bidders for the Nets to trade him, and he couldn't get a deal elsewhere, That's why he opted back in for the 1 year. I think Harden's long in the tooth. I'm assuming James Harden comes to camp ready to play, committed, because he has a contract on the line. I think James Harden's genuinely lost a step. I don't think Kyrie or Durant has lost a step. Embiid certainly hasn't. Embiid will be outstanding. But Embiid is the most injury prone, maybe amongst the four. Him and Harden are more likely to get injured than Durant or Irving, but let's assume that they're healthy. I just feel Harden has lost that step. The James Harden of the Houston Rockets, combine him with Embiid, and you can make the argument they're a more potent duo, but not quite this James Harden. I think Kyrie Irving plays hard the whole year, gives it all he has, because he's in this contract year, and I think Durant will be Durant. I think they're the more potent duo of the two.
Go ahead, Jim.
I think that you're ridiculous. I think that, first off, I think you want to talk about long in the tooth. Kyrie Irving is older than Harden. Secondly, I feel that while he should be well rested because he didn't play most of the season last year, and he can play as hard as he wants to play this year, but that's what you think, because he doesn't show that he's done that since Cleveland, right? He hasn't really shown that he's going to bring it every play of every game, because he hasn't done that throughout his career. So I'm going to stick with what he's done throughout his career. And although he's in a contract year because he wants to get paid, it's not going to be so exciting because he is 35, 36 years old. He is older than Harden is. I think that Harden, one, is going to, he's got a little bit more left in the tank. He's got a little bit better shot than Kyrie, and he's playing with a much better person. And you're saying that, Embiid's the more injury prone. Embiid didn't get hurt last year, but Durant was. Hold on, Durant was hurt the year before that too, right? So let's talk about that for a second. I think that you are making up visions of grandeur on your Nets because you're a Nets homer, and that's okay. You're allowed to do that, but I don't think that they're worth that. I don't think that they're worth that, and I think that when all is said and done about those two players specifically, the 1-2 punch of Embiid and Harden beats out
Max,
Durant.
I had to look it up because I was in disbelief over what you just said. And I was questioning it. Kyrie Irving's 30 years old. He's not 35. He's 30 years old. Okay?
Sure. I thought he was older than
Kyrie
that.
Irving, you're thinking of Kevin Durant, who I think is 34. But
Okay.
Kyrie Irving's 30. So Kyrie Irving is younger than James Harden.
All right,
So-
yeah, because James Harden just had a 33rd birthday yesterday.
So Kyrie Irving's younger. So even eliminating the age factor here, I mean, it's it's a matter of opinion. Mac, what do you think? We're not talking about attitudes. Who do you think is a more potent duo? Who's going to have a bigger year next year? Let's put it another way. Which duo is going to do better? That basically is what it comes down to. For next year only, we're talking about.
I'd still have to go along with Pags. I mean, Harden still has that, that fadeaway shot. You can't defend it. Most people can't defend that shot.
He didn't take many of them last year. They couldn't defend it. We didn't see many of them.
Yes.
His scoring went down by a lot. He wasn't the same prolific scorer he was during his years in Houston. And even his first year with the Nets was outstanding.
That may be true, Jack, but everybody adjusts to certain moves. Defenses adjust to those moves. So if I right now was the agent of James Harden, I would be all over the Philadelphia 76ers. I wouldn't let him up for air because right now, James Harden, whether you like it or not, is still one of the best basketball players in the league.
Oh, no. They would have offered him a max deal, the Sixers, if he was. He disappointed them last year. Part of Harden's problem was the hamstring injury he suffered while he was in net. I don't think he fully got over that. So he's injury prone, I think, at this point in the year. He kind of has to pace himself a little, not go all out. But if he was still one of the best players in the NBA, the Sixers would have given him a max deal or he would have gotten it elsewhere. But he didn't go elsewhere. He bought in, compromised with the team to see whether he could have a big year this year and then get a great deal next year.
Yeah, I love that Carlos has got so much to say, but I could tell that Carlos should stick to football because he knows nothing about basketball whatsoever. Obviously, Harden's a good scorer, but he won't win a championship. He's proved that so far. That if Embiid plays elsewhere, he will not have the same numbers. Obviously, Carlos is just a hater, and that's okay. Stick to football, Carlos, because you absolutely know nothing about basketball whatsoever. I take what you say with the toilet paper that I use to wipe my butt.
Wow!
I know.
Wow! I thought
There
you were
you
going with a grain of salt, but you.
This is supposed to be a match. Shame on you, Mac. When you started the Northeast Streaming Network, this show in particular, one of the things you wanted to hold me to that you don't hold Pags to is this is supposed to be a family type show.
Hey, I was G-rated with that. I was definitely PG rated with that. I didn't go
listen and talk sports, and they got to be subjected to this.
Yeah.
That's right. Sometimes you got to smack him with the truth. He's trying to get a little rise out of me. Well, he did. He got that little rise.
Maybe Carlos is right. Did you ever think of that?
You know what? I could think that Carlos is right. You could think that Carlos is right. I happen to know better because I pay attention more to basketball.
Right.
So obviously, anybody who thinks that Embiid would lose all of his numbers by going somewhere else, Embiid is likely and arguably the best player in the NBA right now.
Yeah, and the courts are all the same size.
Exactly.
Same.
That he'd be a beast everywhere he'd go, and that's and to say otherwise just means that you are foolish. Right. So that's why I say I would just flush whatever Carlos is saying right down the toilet.
All right. So Archie Bunker reference there. There you go.
So and it's my attitude. There's the reason why that it's my attitude.
Yeah.
Like I have anything to do with them playing on the court. Get out of
You're
here.
running
I
the
mean,
team.
this is why you can't take seriously anything that he's saying. He's just playing. He's showing his cards. I don't like the Sixers. I don't like Embiid. So I'm going to bap. That's all it is, Carlos. Stick to football. You sound better. At least you sound more intelligent with football.
Right. Good point. Carlos, we do love you, though. We treasure all your comments. We really do. You're very insightful. So, just
see, whatever, Carlos. You can keep on talking all you want. Like I said, I already know where you stand with things.
Yes.
So, and hey, listen, Carlos, you ought to know that this is all in love. This is all in love. It's not nothing's personal because listen, they don't pay me enough money to care.
Hey, Pags, don't bring that up during the show, please.
There we go. Exactly. That's exactly correct. So as I'm getting in, not only with Mac and Jack, but I'm getting in with the viewers too. So it's getting a lot of fun here today.
Big part of the program. Viewers, you're part of this is your personal sports network. So that's
exactly. So let's end with this one, especially since football is coming up. Who is going to be the NFL MVP in 2022? Easy.
Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes plays for the former Super Bowl team. He's got all the talent in the world there. Some of the best coaching in the history of football. So if Patrick Mahomes can't, win the MVP, then he should start looking for another job. That's all I got.
I'm going to tell you, what if we come down to a coach who's coached, 20, 25 years, wins one Super Bowl in that time, and that's the best coaching in the history of football? Yeah. The law of averages tells you if there's 32 teams in the league, every team's got to win once every 32 years. I mean, we're not talking Bill Belichick. In all due respect to Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes might win it. Usually it's a quarterback who wins it over the course of a season. I mean, what makes him more likely to win it than Josh Allen? I mean, the guy I'm going for, is a quarterback. He's won it 2 years in a row, Aaron Rodgers. Why shouldn't he repeat? If the Packers make a serious Super Bowl run, it's going to be because of Aaron Rodgers, and they're going to look at him losing Davante Adams. And they're going to look at Rodgers having to overcome that with inexperienced receivers to get there. And whether I'm picking the Packers to go to the Super Bowl, win the Super Bowl, and make the Super Bowl, I'll have my predictions next week, on that, on a NFL show. I could say right now, I'm going for Aaron Rodgers on a three-peat with the Packers.
Of course you are, Jack. You got the poster of him in your bedroom right now, so we know that is your boy.
So, and it's interesting that he puts that up there. I'm going to do the caveat to what Alan is saying right here, that if the Eagles do go 13-4, that has to go right with them to be able to do that. I got them going 11-6 as a more realistic number. But if by chance they go 13-4, I feel that there would be that Hurts would be hands down. I think at the moment right now that Josh Allen is the front runner. I think that any running back that would start to come close to the Emmitt Smith record. If you got 22 touchdowns over the course, that's what a running back would consider. Same thing with a wide receiver. But the problem is that the quarterback's thrown to the wide receiver, so the quarterback would typically get that. I feel that really Josh Allen, if he has the season that he's supposed to have, that he would do that. I think that if Rodgers wins the division and gets the number 1 seed, then yes, I think Rodgers would be the three-peat. I think Brady automatically has 4 votes before the season even began because he's Tom Brady. So he's already in the lead right now because he's Tom Brady. So it's hard for me to really determine without a game being played. And obviously there's nobody on defense that they could be a game MVP, but they're not going to be the league MVP because it just doesn't happen that way. Unless
how about Micah Parsons? Right?
Well, I think that he could be a defensive MVP. I don't think that he would ever get looked at as, unless he scored, like, here's the caveat to that. If he was to get like 6 interceptions and score like 4 or 5 touchdowns throughout the year, where those games were won because of the touchdowns that he did, like whether it's a fumble recovery or, it's an interception for a touchdown, I think that points are what really makes the difference. And short of, like, even realistically, when Strahan took the sack record,
right,
he wasn't even in the top 10 in voting in MVP. So that's why I think that there's no defensiveman, no guy on defense that will ever be considered as part of the most valuable player of the league, because they don't score enough points.
That's not true, Pag. Alan Page, Lawrence Taylor, they were both defensive players that got the MVPs.
Well, and that was a different time in football, a much different time in football. And you're right, Lawrence Taylor. First off, Lawrence Taylor was disruptive every week, and that season that he got the MVP, there wasn't anybody who stood out on the offensive side. This is an offensive league now. It's a much different time than it was back then.
If it's a non-quarterback, the guy I look to win the MVP would be Jonathan Taylor, the running back of the Indianapolis Colts.
Yeah.
Because the Colts just missed out on the playoffs. They got Matt Ryan. They don't have Carson Wentz anymore. Colts still have, the pieces in place to make a serious playoff run. So if they have a really good year, it'll be in large part because Jonathan Taylor, is running the ball the way he has in the past. And he was under serious consideration for, the MVP award last year.
And don't forget about the offensive line, Jack. That's where
but no one player is going to get it on the offensive line.
No, he's talking about the offensive line because that's to add to your argument.
Oh, right,
Jonathan Taylor. He's not talking about a player on the offensive line getting it. He's talking about the offensive line. So my thought on that is a non-quarterback is Deebo Samuel.
Oh,
because he's the everything.
Great chance. Yeah, that's a great selection too.
I've never seen anyone. And when I'm talking about the history of football, you can put Red Grange and Jim Brown there, run as hard, maybe Earl Campbell, as Deebo Sanders. That man is 100% all out all the time.
Well,
but what goes off and does sensationally, and you never know.
There's a guy in Atlanta who does very similar things, but because he plays for Atlanta, you don't even really notice it. But it was because they mimicked. San Francisco decided to mimic what Atlanta was doing with their wide receiver running back. The name escapes me right now, but he did really well, and he was the entire offense for the Falcons last year.
The team would have to be good. I think it could be a pass rusher if he stands out as the best pass rusher in the NFL. TJ Watt goes crazy this year. 25 sacks, sets a record, and the Steelers are really good, and he anchors their defense. A guy like him, conceivably could walk off with the award.
That's a great point, Jeff. That's a great point.
Well, and that's kind of both Carlos and Alan came up with Cordarrelle Patterson. That's kind of who I was talking about. I feel that a team would have to be great and have a great record with a bad offense for somebody on the defense to win the MVP. That they would have to make it to the playoffs and be somebody who could actually go far in the playoffs because of the defense, not because of the offense. And that's the only way that a defenseman is going to wind up.
Would you put any special teamers in that discussion? Like the great Mark Mosley, Jan Stenerud, all these great great punters and great kickers, and the coverage people. I mean, would you put them in that discussion also?
I think that they're good for games, not for the season. Unless you have somebody who's running one back every game, and it's the deciding factor in the game, I don't think that really falls.
Deshaun Watson, you're talking about right now.
Yeah. So, but that being said, hey, our 2 hours is up.
Wow.
It went by pretty quick. As we go back and forth with these guys, it's been heated lately. This has been a heated week all week long. We've been going at each other, so it's been fun. I like it when we get a little excitable. Yeah, I think so do the people watching too. Except when we mention Keith Hernandez, the moment we mentioned, we already lost 4 people. We lost 4 people the moment I said Keith Hernandez. So, anyways,
okay.
Everybody, tune in tomorrow as we have Jim Jeffcoat join us for the Sunday Football Sunday show. And as always, thank you for joining us, and everybody have a great Saturday.